Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session. I have quite a diverse group of panelists here. Definitely not a homogeneous group, all coming from different industries and areas. At this panel, we are going to talk about ethics of ESG, the ethics of ESG. And what we will try to do is to answer the question of how the private sector can contribute to sustainable and inclusive future. My name is Dr. Liezl Groenewald, and I'm the CEO of the Ethics Institute based in South Africa. The ethics of ESG revolve around integrating ethical principles into business practices to promote sustainability and social responsibility, as all of us, of course, know. Some of the key aspects of ESG is, of course, environmental ethics, which involves making decisions that minimize harm to the environment. Then, of course, social ethics. This focuses on the impact of business operations on society. And lastly, governance ethics. This pertains to the ethical management of a company or a business. It involves transparency, accountability, and fairness in corporate governance. And yesterday, especially, we spoke quite a lot about these specific values, as it also pertains to ethical leadership. So the ethical principles such as honesty, fairness, objectivity, and responsibility underpin ESG efforts, guiding companies to make decisions that are not only profitable, but also socially and environmentally responsible. So we have 5 esteemed panelists here, and they are going to answer this question of how the private sector can contribute to a sustainable and inclusive future. I'll start with Dr. Louis Baocheng. You are familiar with him. He is the director of the Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics.
Yeah.
Economics, okay, in China. Thank you. Welcome, Doctor. Jérôme Eschbach. Jérôme is the head of Sustainable Solutions at BNP Paribas. Vincent Subilia, Executive Director at the Geneva Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Board Member of the International Chamber of Commerce, Switzerland. Welcome. Prof. Jenny Phillips, at least we have some gender representativity here. Prof. Jenny Phillips, Dean, Faculty of Business and Law at the University of St. Joseph, Macau, China. And then last but not least, very important man, everyone else is, but we depend quite a lot on him, Mr. André Schneider, CEO at Geneva Airport. Yes, and board member of Globe Ethics. Thank you. All right, welcome everyone. I'm going to ask 1 round of questions and then a second round of questions, and maybe if there is time, a little bit more, but there's a very big timer here in front of me, so we'll try to stick to it. And I've also asked the panelists to keep their eye there. Yes. Jenny, I'm starting with you. The concern for sustainability, especially in environmental and social contribution, has gained more attention in Macau this decade. What has the engagement and reactions of SMEs in Macau been?
Okay, well, thank you for the question. So I'm from Macau, and just when Fadi was telling me about this global ethics, and there's this panel about ESG, I was like, okay, it's it happened that I just completed an ongoing part of a research about ESG by small to medium enterprises in Macau. I think everyone here, those who knows about Macau would know about the casinos. the large integrated resorts. So when we talk about ESGs, when we talk about CSR, it's all these large companies that people think they are doing. And how much of them are really their true intent that they want to give back, or how much is because of government regulation, how much is for PR, we don't know. So we try to find out from the SME perspective. And one thing, the first thing we found out was that they don't know what is ESG. The small companies, when we asked them, they have no idea. So I told my students, our research team, okay, they don't need to know what is ESG. We cut it down and asked them about actions and practices that they have done. And what we found out was that many of them, almost all of them, have participated in environmental protection in the area of reducing the use of plastics, not using plastic bags, not using plastic straws. But the reason was because it's government regulation. And in fact, intentionally, they do not agree to that because they think that the cost is higher for them because they need to look for alternative materials for straws, for example. And then they also participated in changing all their machines to energy efficient machines. And we found out the reason behind was also because there is government subsidy. So as we dig deeper, we found out that for small to medium enterprises in Macau, they don't have the concept on environmental or governance or this type of ethics, but social they might have. So they would participate in hiring people with disability, for example, giving job opportunities to them, and also encouraging staff to participate in volunteering work. But the main issue for them deep down is still profit making, because for them what they see is the most important thing is to make profit. How am I going? I need to worry about paying rent and paying staff, paying employees their salary to make ends meet. That's their main concern. So they don't put in extra effort to think about environment, to think about the society, to think about governance. The companies so far that we have managed to talk with to do the interview, only then they started to realize, because apparently we found out, well, we only have 7 cases yet. We haven't do a wider research yet, but it turns out that they don't, what we lack is education. What they need to see is the long-term sustainability that it is going to bring, because currently they don't see the need for the environmental, societal, and governance measure. So that is just some general background to share with you.
Thank you very much. One wonders what the impact will be in the casino industry if they get the ESG practices right. It will, yeah, something to look forward to, I think. Jérôme, being in the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, your focus is very much business, obviously. So we talk a lot about ethics in business, but what about ethics in finance? Yes, it's a loaded question. Is it a new concern, old concern?
Okay, that's okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for the question. Clearly, sustainable finance seems to be the new thing, but it's actually not at all, because it started a long time ago. It started already 200 years ago with a strong religious background, mainly based on the Methodist Church in the US, which decided to exclude from their investments stocks, investments related mainly to slavery and to weapons. Then it evolved, and at the beginning of the last century, beginning of the 20th century, was launched in the US the Pioneer Fund, which decided to exclude what were considered as sin stocks, so mainly related to gambling, pornography, alcohol, tobacco. So something very close to what is excluded now from responsible funds or ESG funds. Then slowly the topic became more and more political, with a very high pressure from students on universities in the 60s, 70s, which asked universities to ban investments related to war in Vietnam, so mainly weapons, and related to apartheid in South Africa. So we can see that it started with very strong religious bias, but evolved politically and addressing the challenges of each period. So it's not surprising that now it also covers environmental concerns, which are very key. And also what is new is that the topic becomes more and more regulated, when before it was left to the will of each entity or institution.
Thank you. Yeah, the regulation, one wonder if it becomes over-regulated, where does the ethics of it all go? But that is something that we can discuss if we have time. André, you are a champion in the aviation industry and are therefore best positioned to inform us about the position of the aviation industry to sustainable practices.
Okay, thank you very much
Sure.
for inviting me. Let me just do a first check. Who came by plane to this conference? Please lift your hand.
Just left the airport.
Okay, good. Me too, but for other reasons.
Ask who lost their luggage at the airport.
I mean, thank you for this remark. Little correction, if someone loses the baggage, it's actually the airline, but let's leave that one aside. Huh? We can at the end have some questions about what didn't go well on your trip, and I might try to answer. Now, what do I want to show? I mean, first of all, I'm head of an airport, so we're actually not selling tickets. We're offering the possibility for a plane to land or take off and hopefully distribute the baggage on time, as we all like to see. But nevertheless, we are also confronted with at least in Europe, really raising social pressure to say aviation is really bad. We should not be using it. Now, how do you position yourself in that one? I'm not selling the tickets. It's not saying that I'm not having to do something, because I think we are very strong on thinking about that. If you're offering something, it's not just what you sell, but also what people will do with what you offer. And we have a very strong responsibility to help actually people understand how to use it. Because another phenomena, just to share, I mean, we had for years now demonstrations in the street of plenty of people saying we have to stop flying and everything. And guess what? They're all now in line to take the plane. So we're also confronted with a high level of, how you say, incoherence of people. So yes, we have a role to take to help shape the behavior of the people. And for me, it's actually beyond ESG. Because at the end of the day, I have grown up, I'm old enough, and here I'm luckily not one of the eldest ones, so that's already quite, which is not always the case. Nevertheless, I have grown up when flying was absolutely not accessible for people like me. Not possible, much too expensive, you wouldn't do it. Which meant my, how you say, my surrounding, which I was living in, was something like 50 kilometers around where I lived. And if I was lucky, I took the summer train to go a little bit through Europe. And I have had the chance to go and travel further, and it's an incredible experience to learn about differences, and I think also form a more informed approach to ethical and values questions. So I believe very strongly that we cannot just give up on it, and not everyone will take a sailing boat to go to China. At least I'm not sure. So, which means the position has to be, we have to help people understand that there is a cost by using the plane, even if we're not selling the ticket. And we also have to help the industry through what we do, but also by enticing industry. And I will get back to that in a second, to actually go to a path where we will decarbonize flying. And we have actually as an industry a target to be there in 2050, which is actually aligned with the Conference of Paris goals. So, but the difficulty is we are not stopping today flying. So this brings you in very complicated discussions, because even my board asks me already, why don't you do not a publicity action saying, don't fly anymore? And I have to explain to them, frankly, you politicians, you can pass a law for that, but we are only offering the possibility. But we can actually entice that. For example, we're paying a special financial incentive for airlines which come with last generation planes, which is planes which produce 40% less noise, which is another important issue we have to face, and actually consume 15% less kerosene, which means quite the drop in CO2 emissions. And it has allowed us to raise that. So I think we are really in a situation where we want to do the right thing. For 90% or no, even 95% of the impact, we are actually not the guys who do it, but we have to try influence. So actually business has to go beyond to just think about what they do themselves, because that might be actually the easy part, not always, but might be the easy part. But they have to think what people do with whatever they offer as a service, as a product, because that's where it starts to stick. And they have to also go into educating people to understand what are the consequences of what they do. Not saying you should not do it, but actually better understand, and then hopefully, I really say hopefully, do a more informed decision. So that's a little bit where we stand. I'm not sure whether it's ethics or not. It's just about helping all of us getting out of the different crises we're in without pointing the finger, which is very often the case. It's the problem of the industry. It's the problem of this and that, which is the safest way not to resolve anything. Thank you. Okay, electric planes, there is a limit. I mean, you know, electric planes means storing electricity. The only today green way is through batteries. Batteries have a weight. You can reduce the weight, but by reducing the weight, you increase the power in a battery per square inch, which means it goes from a battery to a bomb. By the way, you have all heard about those cigarettes and so on, which go off. So there's a limit. That means you can fly with smaller planes, shorter distances with electric, and that will come. In Europe, it will be in Sweden for the traffic to the islands around, which are typically 10 to 16 people. Northern UK, there might even be some replacements of taxis or of helicopters. But on the long distance, we have only two choices currently. It's either going to sustainable aviation fuel, which reduces by 80% the emissions, minimum at the moment, or we go to hydrogen, which comes with a lot of other strings attached, which I won't go into because otherwise we'll need 5 sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that information. I was just thinking, Jenny, on your question, what about electric planes? And the first answer was, André, that for that you need electricity. Now in South Africa, and I'm trying to find my Nigerian friends here. Yeah. Not 100% sure what the electricity situation in Nigeria is, but in South Africa, that flight wouldn't even, go from one province to the other with the lack of electricity. Moving on swiftly, Vincent, how do you see the Geneva chambers and other chambers of commerce and the industry in general? What do you see their role in supporting businesses to lead in ESG? And what would be the next key steps?
Thank you very much indeed for that highly relevant question. And to those who have traveled from far, be it by plane with or without luggage or by train, a very warm welcome to Geneva. We're delighted to have you here in what is often, I guess, rightly so, because I'm an active promoter of the so-called smallest of the large cities, but can be viewed as a capital of global ethics, because ethics is truly the backbone of the trust economy, which we're advocating here in Geneva. So welcome again, and I'd like to praise the organizers for setting this event here, in particular events whom I see on the last row. Well, coming back to your questions, chambers have always acted as the voice of business, and this is exactly what the Geneva Chamber, which is considered one of the oldest and largest institution in Switzerland, has been doing for roughly 160 years. We operate on two fronts. From macro perspective, Switzerland is a very active democracy whereby you vote almost every weekend, just exaggerating slightly, but at least every 3 months. And therefore, what we do here is bluntly stating advocacy or lobbying, and we help shape policies. And therefore, in that respect, the sustainability playing a key role, especially in an alpine country where 60% of our land is covered by mountains, and where we can really feel the glaciers melting. And this is a very, again, very tangible outcome of global warming. Sustainability, of course, plays a key role. And the Chamber, for instance, has been firmly advocating legislative reforms such as the Climate Act or the CO2 Act on the macro front. Plus, the Chamber is a marketplace to the benefit of its 1,000 corporate members. And there I believe that we have also a role to play very humbly again in terms of education, because this goes back to pedagogy, which is absolutely key. You've mentioned it for Macau. We don't have as many casinos as you do, but we share the same needs of making sure that the new generation, which is, by the way, much more aware, if I may say, of its forefathers than of these concerns, make sure that not only are they fully familiar with the challenges, but that they're willing to embark on them. That's to set, if you wish, the scene. And I modestly believe that Chamber is not only here in Switzerland, whereby we are private institutions. That's an important factor to stress, because since we're not a member of the government, I also have a political hat, and André, rest assured that I'll never, ever dare to, again, reduce the activity of the airport. I know you'll have some electric and hydrogen plane, and we need them, of course, because without the airport, Geneva would not be that capital of governance that we know. But again, the Chamber being a private institution, we can fiercely ascertain our initiatives, and we are not bound by any views imposed on us by the state. This is not the case in every country. Chambers, for instance, in our big neighboring hexagonal country here in the West, they directly depend upon the authorities at Bercy, and therefore it's harder for them to have another stance than the authorities. But what I'm saying here is that I believe that Chambers have always been at the forefront of ensuring that business conditions could help companies grow. And this comes to the bottom line of your questions. My firm belief that corporate actors are part of not only the equation, but the solution for more sustainable solutions going forward, and hence ethical behaviors. There's often a clear divide that is being pleaded between those in favor of a greener economy and those that are fiercely fighting for more dividends at the end of the year. And I believe, naively possibly, but there are plenty of examples and hence benchmarks for companies of corporate players that have managed to reconcile economy and ecology, which, by the way, for those that have learned ancient Greek, have the very same root, echo, which is the maison, the house, burning, by the way. So again, this is something that we've always been advocating, and the way we operate very pragmatically is that we take entrepreneurs by the hand and we showcase to them what best practices could be that would not only help them reduce their carbon footprint, for instance, but would in fact generate some added value that can be monetized and hence gain more dividends or increase their revenues at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. I must say, Vincent, that is heartwarming to hear that you take the young entrepreneurs or even older ones and, by the hand and promote sustainability and ESG in general. Thanks a lot. Liu, congratulations with your book that you spoke about this morning, Chinese Values. And from your book, we gathered, well, obviously you penned down Chinese wisdom in the book and the Chinese values. And I wonder if from the Chinese perspective, what would be what can contribute to the private sector's contribution to sustainable and inclusive future? Some wisdom, Chinese wisdom from your side, please.
Okay. In the first place, in the book, I try to tear off the hypocrisy veil of the Chinese value, which means I love others better. Human beings always love themselves better than others. You love your husband because he might be a good cook. He might be good looking. He might have a wealthy parent. So people have a reason, and that's legitimate enough. And those who preach love, at the back of their mind, in most cases, they want others to be generous and they can be more selfish. Well, second, it is not really wrong, but how institutionally we can set up a structure that those who love themselves can gain far better benefit by loving others. So for a society, either governance or management, you have two things to deal with. One is to grow the pizza, the other to divide the pizza, okay? To grow the pizza, you need to motivate people. So I was saying that the restaurants surrounding my campus, they do not have to love our students or faculty. They love the money, period. Because otherwise, if they don't have the right food or service, we don't give them the money. So if you really educate them to love us, and then we will be obliged to pay for a lousy food. So it's a matter of, if you guys read John Rawls, so they advocating mere love doesn't serve good of the society before you really have a rule setting, a institutional construct, okay? So simply, okay, then come to the division of the pizza. The one that cuts a pizza with the last one to pick the slice will serve the purpose. Instead of, okay, oh, you have a larger pizza, you have a larger pizza. So institutional setting. Then the third one is that co-balance. There are two sets of CSRs. One CSR is popularly known as corporate social responsibility. And the other part of CSR is called citizens' social rights. Without customers protecting themselves, getting allied together to bargain, either in the form of union for workers, etc., you cannot just unilaterally rely on the benevolence or generosity of one party. So that's really the counterbalance. In a Chinese wisdom, that's the yin and yang, opposing each other, but working together. You guys can reflect the logo of the yin yang. So with the yin, there is yang, and with the yang, there is yin, and they can coexist together, but the management lies in how to draw the fine line in between. You can distinguish what is yin and what is yang, but you do not draw a very straight line. You can make it very smooth this way. That's the art of management, or that's the art of the governance. So if you really make it very straight and make everything equal, actually that's the socialism that has turned out to be a failure in multiple countries. So they focus on division of the wealth instead of growing the wealth. And then they made everybody equal, but everybody equally poor.
Thank you.
So everyone was picking the scum. So therefore, lastly, it's really Chinese Deng Xiaoping said, let a few get rich first, and then people will admire him and then grow the cake. So at the moment, growing the cake or growing the pizza is still taking precedence over division of the pizza. But even though there is a disparity, but those who can take the least share can really do better than what they had yesterday. That's also a good progress.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for that wisdom and the comparisons or metaphors that you use is surely something that we can take away with us for a long time. Jenny, staying on in China, what would, okay, you've told us now about the SMEs in Macau, and also that they are actually exercising ESG, but because of regulatory requirements. So what would be your policy recommendation for the implementation of a sustainable ESG strategies for SMEs? How would you convince them to do it for the right reasons, the ethical reasons, and not because of compliance to rules and regulations?
Well, in order to do it from the actual ethical reason, like we mentioned earlier, Vincent also mentioned earlier, we need the education, right? They need to see the need. Actually, for example, environmental ethics, it is something that is not being seen right now. They may not see a result right now, but they will see a result in the long term if they can do that. Some of the SMEs that we have actually 2 years ago, we have collaborated with other organizations to launch a Declan Award for responsible business, responsible enterprises. We call it DARE. And there were a few SMEs that dare to apply. And the winners, it seems the winners, they actually have the social responsibility at heart. They did that because the actions that they do was because of what they believe in. For example, the winner of that company is a human resources company. They have put a lot of effort into employees' well-being and caring, and also in sourcing the right employees. So these have to come from themselves, I believe. It has to come from their heart. And other organizations, for instance, they give an example that is very simple. To be responsible to the society, you don't have to do a lot. You don't have to give a lot of money. Some organizations, they don't think it's the large company that should be donating to all these things, not small companies. But the idea is that responsibility is not just about donating the money. There are things that they can do. For example, one organization, they have some rooms for milk feeding, for breastfeeding. They have breastfeeding room for their staff, and they open it to the public. I mean, people who are working in that area, they are in one of the main districts. So this is something that they can, without extra cost on them, they can contribute to the society as well. So what we are trying to do, well, very small effort in my university. I started a sustainable business series, a small project, which we try to bring in these types of examples and trying to conduct research and do talks and trying to educate people about the need for that. It's not just, we are not being ethical because of ethics. It is something that is more core to the human value. So we are not protecting the environment because we are asked to do it. We have to do it because this is part of us, right? The world belongs to everyone. Everyone has a responsibility to protect it. And this, if we do not, like I was always telling the younger generation that if you do not conserve water, if you keep dumping trash into the sea, when you get to my age, you don't have enough clean water anymore. So this is something that is longer term that we need to, I think it might not be easy to to for the older generation, the traditional small businesses that we are studying now. It's not easy to change their mentality. What we can do is to impose regulation and have companies. Maybe we can talk with the chambers also in Macau. They are the ones that understands more. Maybe through them, we can also learn from Vincent to see how the chambers in Macau can collaborate to do that. Some of the chambers in Macau are actually doing that also to encouraging ESG practices, but it's mostly the international chambers, the British chamber, the French chamber, but the local associations, their focus are still more on the profit making, like Professor Liu was sharing. It could be a Chinese mentality, right? They're still in the mentality that being poor for so long, they need to make money first and then think about other things. But I think we should, what we are trying to do is to start changing the mentality from the younger generation.
Thank you. And I think you weren't here this morning, but Lawrence, with his book, Change Makers, also spoke this morning about, making the mentality of making money. And
I was talking with him during lunch also about this.
Super.
Yes.
Thank you, Jenny. Jérôme, the financial institutions or banks are also extremely highly regulated. And I suppose, well, not suppose, for very good reason. But what would you say are the hurdles that the bank could meet with regards to the integration of ethics and sustainability in its business? And how can these hurdles be addressed?
The issue that we have with ethics, it's not an absolute value. It's not that easy to draw the line between what we consider to be good or bad. Sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes it's not. And it very much depends on your cultural background, may depend on your religion, on your personal values, and also on the time. What was accepted maybe 20, 30 years ago is not acceptable anymore today. Let's take a topic such as abortion, for instance. It may be considered as a sin in some places, whether it's completely acceptable in other places. Same for marriage for all, death penalty. It very depends on the place where you live, on what you believe individually. We also have a very strong debate about weapons. Some may consider that weapons are bad and shouldn't be part of responsible investments. Others may think that they are absolutely key to protect democracies, to preserve peace. And more tricky, you may have some topics that may confront environmental and social themes, challenges. If we're talking about the fight against deforestation, this is very good for environment, but may lead also to a job cut in the agriculture sector. And clearly it's not the role of a bank to tell their clients what is good or what is bad, but a financial institution may be bold also and have its own convictions and set very strict guidelines about what they agree to finance and or not to finance. And also it's very important for business, not only banks, but business more generally, to rely on some international regulation, rules, structures such as the UN Global Compact, which is a very interesting referential because they state 10 principles related to the protection of the respect of human rights, labor rights, protection of environment, protection of business ethics. And it's very important also that companies, corporates, business can rely on this kind of setup.
Thank you. And let me want to elaborate now on that question, but let me first give our other panelists an opportunity. André, the aviation industry does sit with a few challenges, as you've mentioned, in terms of ESG. And how does one then balance society's expectations in sustainability, the individual's behavior, and the answers or the approach to the industry? Now, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but I'm sure that you have some more to say about this.
Thank you very much. I think, as I said, I mean, and we just heard it now from Jérôme, there is never a total clear line. What might be acceptable for one is less acceptable or not acceptable at all. It's also very clear that an industry is not going, I mean, that's perhaps an important part. We as industry, we don't shape society. And that would be a big mistake. So we also have to be able to rely on the legislators, the society, to also take choices. I mean, you cannot all bounce back. It's not because it's something is available that, or you cannot be forcing an industry not to make something available, with some exceptions, arms, for example, but that's another issue. I won't go there. Very personal opinion. But there are things, I mean, just take cars. I mean, in Europe and in Switzerland, we want to reduce engines which use gasoline. But should you have a law which doesn't allow for it or not? I think that's a question of the legislator. It's not, I mean, as a producer of cars, you have to produce cars which are less and less impactful on the environment and at the best speed possible. So you're not here to just wait, and that might be different speeds. So the difficulty we have, and I alluded already a little bit to it, is that when you have political discussions, everyone is the first one to say, we don't want to have aviation and everything, but they totally forget that probably their job is depending on having an airport, that and so on. So, and that's very difficult for us as an industry, because we are not those who have to say he is right or he's wrong. And we have to work on making our impact on the environment, on the people around us, less and less important. But we're not going to choose what should be there or not, even if you might have an opinion. And in Switzerland, where you can vote every weekend or every 2 or 3 months, we have plenty of space to express that. So I think the challenge really is for the industry is to help people better understand what they can do with the product or the service you offer. And I think that's probably also some path the financial industry could go, not to choose, I don't do that or not, but I expect this industry, if I want to continue to invest in it, that they take some actions that people who buy whatever they sell is used in a sensible or responsible way. Because that's something which is much less used. And I think that's a path which you have to go. And secondly, you need to be showing to the people around you that you take those things serious, not just by saying that you take them serious, but that you put up objectives and you actually show how you progress towards them.
Okay. Thank you. So it sounds very much like, educating industry, but also the consumers, and informing them about the options that they do have. Sorry. Thanks, André. Vincent, what role does strong ethical leadership play in successfully implementing sustainable activities and initiatives within businesses?
Thank you indeed for that highly relevant question. Just coming back to what André just mentioned, because I believe this is absolutely key. Not only the lack of consistency in consumer behaviors, which I mean, we're all human beings and prone to failures, but also to progress. But the fact that you don't command sustainability, you build it. By actions. I'm a firm believer into leading, coming back to leadership, leading by example. And of course, you always have the carrot and the stick, and you need to find that balanced way. But in any organization, and possibly more precisely within a corporation, if you want to go down the sustainability path, you need to take it from the top. You need, I believe, to have that type of leadership that would then engage with all constituencies, ensure that stakeholders are properly aligned, and that you get the entire institution moving forward. And this is why any sustainability experts, and I'm not one at all, but would claim that with a view to attain these objectives, you need to have the voice at the top conveying a bold message. Now, it always goes back to consistency. I mean, and I share the concerns that have been expressed here. For most of the corporate actors, they have an eye on their P&L. They're generating jobs, and they want to ensure that they get some revenues at the end of the day. So it's really a change of mindset, I guess, or of paradigm for them to consider, depending, of course, on the type of industries you're active in, but that acting in a sustainable way can gear additional benefits from them. And actually, we have plenty of examples around that, being large firms such as ABB, which has generated more revenue by cutting carbon emissions, or Logitech nearby, who's the inventor of that little mouse that we all have, that have reused all the plastics within it, and making their product not only more affordable, because at the end of the value chain, this is what the customer is looking at, and highly reliable, but also more sustainable. So again, I believe that there is an equation, a difficult one here, that requires some bold steps in terms of leadership, and then making sure that it is being properly executed by the management, and everybody is pulling at the same string rather than shooting itself in the legs.
Thank you. I think it is also important to note that you can have the ethical leadership at the top, but if that isn't pulled through, and your middle level managers actually experience all the stress that the ethical leaders have, then that message isn't going to filter through necessarily.
And again, if I may on this one, it's hard, and I mean, we have a multicultural audience here, and this is what makes Geneva unique in terms of its value proposal, if I may put it this way. But I don't think that there is one ethical leader. It all depends on how the environment in which we operate evolves. But what is certain is that if you are embodying these ethical values at the very top of a company, and make sure that you're an inspiring leader that will transpire and become the rule, and hence the benchmark within the organization. And this is absolutely key, in my view.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Then just the last question, Doctor. 4 minutes maximum. This morning you spoke about the squirrels eating the nuts that was broken by someone who had a good intention, but the results were actually not that favorable for the squirrels, who all died. Now, being a bit of a cynical person, having been in the field of business ethics for a decade or 3, in applied ethics, I always wonder about the intention of businesses, whether they are now suddenly involved in ESG because it looks good on the books and they can put it in the integrated report, or are they really, do they have a good intention? So can you elaborate on the intention, and how can we judge whether an organization actually has a good intention instead of just a compliance tick box?
Yeah, in an ethical construct, we have one bottom line, one direction. The bottom line is no harm. So as long as you do not harm others, you feel free to do whatever you like. You can run naked in your own home, but not run onto the street. So the direction is altruism. So as you can really, because there's no ceiling, you can really do more of the benefits to all stakeholders as much as possible. And so in that regard, we see that the role of business can really take some of the reference from the I should say, the mutated 3 golden rules. One is apathetic process, meaning that you feel as others feel. It's not that something you like, others would necessarily like it, okay? So therefore, normally the singular golden rule is don't do those that you won't be done by. But the other is that you do not have to do those you even like. For example, you're a smoker, you do not have to give cigarettes to others, or you are a beef eater, you do not have to force upon a vegetarian on this, even if you like it. So Americans tend to say, oh, you need to have this democracy because, you know, this is good. But in the end, it's a mess up. So, yeah, that's right. So in this way, you know, businesses will have to be more empathetic with multiple stakeholders. They, because in today, it is made possible before without much information, you can only interface with people with your product and price. But right now, customers, even general public, know the whole process you are making the product, or who is the boss, how many girlfriends he's dating. So therefore, they already vote with their money for ethics. So this is something that's a big shift of paradigm. So therefore, in order to make continuously, sustainably your money, you must be a good person. You must make your process transparent, and also you make your last one, interface, product, price, more of the accountable. And so this is something that's really shifting. So it doesn't really revoke my previous statement, people love themselves better, but in order to love yourself better, in order for stockholders love themselves better, they have to love others better to gain a sustainable relationship.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Okay, do we have some questions, MC?
Yes, we have a few questions. So
And we
thank
have
you all
5
so much.
minutes.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to
I see.
put it into one. So first of all, thank you all for your questions. These are definitely interesting, but we are short on time. So one of the things I want to bring up is that you mentioned a little bit yourself about talking about a top-down implementation of ethical practices, ESG initiatives, etc. So in your experiences, what are things that can be implemented at lower level management, whether it's implemented bottom up or at the same time top and bottom, but what can middle management be doing to kind of build capacity in that? And the other question would be very much about choice and consumers' choice. So one person had a question about if they're given the option of taking a 9-hour train versus taking a 1-hour flight, what is the role of businesses? In that option of choice.
Okay, thank you, André. I suppose you are going to go for the choice question.
I'm going quick on both.
Okay.
On the
thank
choice,
you.
the industry has nothing to do. They have to make clear what are the implications of taking a 9-hour train on some questions which are related, or 1-hour plane. At the end, it depends on each one. You might actually like to sit 9 hours in the train to get sleeping time and so on, or you might not.
You also won't lose your baggage if you take the train.
Yes.
Yes, not sure. But anyhow, we'll leave that one. The second one, my experience as a CEO, the CEO has to give a vision where he wants to go with the company. It's a little bit like building a 6-lane highway. So people know where you want to go, but you let them choose the lane they want to take because you want to have their inventivity, their ideas, because you can't do it yourself. But you have to give them clear. I mean, you have to tell them I want to go there because otherwise someone will be there and here. So that's what I believe. And the important thing is you have to make this vision livable, feelable. I mean, it's about they have to feel the same thing about this vision as you do. So at the end, a good CEO has to be a great storyteller, a great emphatic person who can really get the feeling over, because that will give the fuel to the people to actually go this way and actually bring in what they can bring in, which might be many more things than actually the CEO can bring. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Jenny?
Also, very quickly, I think amongst us here, I'm one of the very few who are in middle management, not CEO. So for the first question, I believe like what André shared, the CEO is the one who sets the vision of the company and what they wanted. At middle management is a very important role in terms of leading the team, trying to actually on a daily basis put the mentality of the importance of sustainability and environmentability into the action, into the work of the action. Like for instance, when our university, in my faculty, when I organize a public lecture or something, in the end, there is always wine and cheese, and they often use paper cups. And then I started getting small glasses, and I said, I don't want to see any paper cups. I don't want to see water bottles. So these are small things that CEOs are not going to do, but these are something that probably, yeah. But middle management is the person who's actually there. It's like, okay, take away all the water, all the plastic bottles. I want glass bottles. And then other departments, other faculties started following. And the issue with the 1 hour plane or 9 hour train, I think it's not just about choosing the transportation, it's about other things as well. So what are other things that would need? These 9 hours of train could have other impact compared to the 1 hour airport. And the other thing is that I never check in my baggage. So I don't lost my baggage. I always travel light and carry them by myself.
Yeah,
Please,
it's very short.
Please.
Well, you found a good girl, probably 9 hours together, you can really create chemistry, but 1 hour will not be enough. So many other considerations, cost and everything else. So.
Depending on who sits next to you in the train.
Yeah.
Well, at least in the train, you can move to another carriage if you don't like the one sitting close to you. But anyway, in 20 seconds, I think you touched upon a very important topic, which is the role model of leadership, which is key, but also the fact that you need to engage at all levels of the organization. And for instance, when I took the role as CEO of the chamber, precisely talking about the bottles, that's a very quick win that I implemented. I said, we stop with the plastic bottle, I'll put this won't change the future of our kids, but if all of us are engaging towards these even modest and humble leverage, I think we'll strive for a better world. Thank you.
Absolutely, yes, baby steps. Jérôme, the last word is...
Yeah, very quickly. We really should balance regulation and individual choices and not rely only on governments to expect them to make the right choices. And to this extent, data is absolutely key and something already actionable. Data in order to give consumers the power to decide and to make their choices, saying that they know what they're doing and they know the impact of their individual choices.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all my panel members. I think it's become very clear that, there is a lot to be done, but a lot has already been done. And that perhaps the key in all of this is education and awareness creation, and the education about what can it mean for you as a consumer, what can it mean for you as the business when implementing ESG practices. A big round of applause to